What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of EDH Workshop. I'm MC Sebzi. Welcome to the Monkaroos channel. Today we're going to be talking about Ghired Conclave Exile, another deck tech on one of the first commanders I built when I got back into Commander after a long hiatus. And yeah, this deck firstly mainly picked up Ghired because of the token concept, but kind of mashed it together with an old Selesnya life gain deck I had, and this is what came of it. Welcome. This is my tokens and life gain deck. Ghired is a 5-mana 2/5, enters and makes a 4/4 Rhino with trample, and when he attacks, I populate, and the token enters tapped and attacking. So the whole concept of the deck is to make large tokens that I can populate, or tokens of, useful creatures. And yeah, kind of mixed it with this life gain strategy I had in my other deck and been upgrading it ever since, and it works really well. I guess we'll start off with Planeswalkers. This is actually one of the few decks I have a lot of Planeswalkers in. We got Domri, Chaosbringer. He gives me mana and also helps me give my creatures haste or +1 counters, which is, good for some pretty large creatures like Wayfaring Temple, which we'll get to. But on top of that, he's a mana, and it's good to have a little mana. He is a bit expensive, I guess, but yeah. Anyways, he lets me look at the top 4 cards and makes me put 2 creatures from among them into my hand. And his emblem eventually gives me a 4/4 green beast token with trample every turn. So pretty useful once I get him ulted. I got a Johnny Greyhearted, gives all my creatures vigilance, which is great for a large board. Plus, it can gain me life whenever for 3, and it can put a +1 counter on each creature I control, and a loyalty counter on each other Planeswalker I control, so really good fit in the deck. Garruk Primal Hunter makes a 3/3 beast token, draws me a bunch of cards, and can also make 6/6 worm tokens for each land I control, which, again, I can use to populate. A Johnny Color of the Pride puts a +1 counter on a creature, gives something flying and double strike, but then gives me X 2/2 white cats, where X is my life total. So this is, one of the few cards, and a Johnny Goldmane too, where the synergies kind of mix together, where now I'm getting a bunch of 2/2 tokens for the amount of life I have. And a Johnny Goldmane gains me life, puts a +1 counter on each creature I control, and gives them all vigilance, similar to a Johnny Greathearted. And also, I can put a white avatar creature token with power and toughness equal to my life total on the battlefield. And again, once populated, very large. So this is, again, mixing the 2 strategies together. Moving on to creatures. So there will be a lot of creatures that are more on the life gain side, and some creatures that are more on the token side. But in the end, they kind of mix together as I'm doing both strategies kind of simultaneously. Again, having a lot of large tokens, such as the 4/4 Rhino like Ghired makes, I don't really need a super wide board, but it's good to have, some token helpers and stuff. So, I'm able to put a little more effort into the life gain. So, Trelasara, when I gain life, I put a +1 counter and scry 1. Wayfaring Temple is in here. Its toughness and power equal to the number of creatures I control, and when it deals combat damage, I populate. Pravus of the Steel Legion gives all my creature tokens +1/+4, and then he can make a 1/1, but I don't really use that ability, mainly for the buff, as long as it's my turn, of course. Amara Tandris prevents all combat damage that would be dealt to tokens I control. Soul of Eternity is power and toughness equal to my life total, and then he has Encore, so I can exile it and create a token for every opponent attacking them. And then I'm able to populate those tokens and basically have, keep around another Soul of Eternity, right? Because it says to sacrifice those tokens at the end of step. It doesn't give them the clause that they have to be sacrificed at the end. Spike Feeder's in here mainly to combo off with Archangel of Thune, because why not infinite life and infinite +1 counters? But yeah, Archangel of Thune, whenever I gain life, I put a +1 counter on each creature I control. So again, helping my big board. Combos off with Spike Feeder going infinite, giving infinite +1s on Archangel, and gaining infinite life. Well, infinite +1s on all my creatures. So that's just a cool little addition. Fabine is a new card in here. Gives all my creature tokens haste, and then at the beginning of combat on each turn, each player reveals the top card of their library, and I make a bunch of 1/1 tokens for the lands and give them all my creatures +1 for the non-lands, and then, it's a draw card as well, but mainly buffs my team and gives me more tokens to work with. Giant Ataphage is in here, deals combat damage, creates a token that's a copy of itself. Again, I can then populate these tokens and they just multiply very quickly. Atlapalani can tap to make a 0/1 egg, and then when it dies, I flip cards from the top until I reveal a creature, put it on the battlefield. This was in the pre-con. I kept this in here because if, I don't have a large, 7/7 to copy, or my rhinos die, I'm able to at least maybe even populate the eggs and have a lot of blockers in too, so that way I'm able to swing out more consistently, and then when my eggs die that I've been populating, I get to bring in some other big creatures that are pretty useful. Ezra Root Channeler, creature spells cost X less, where X is the amount of life I've gained this turn, and it could tap to gain me 2 life. It's a good blocker. It's good to basically make everything cost 2 less. Also, if I've gained more life this turn, a lot of things are a lot cheaper, like Amatandris, who's a 7 mana and whatnot. It's good to basically gives me a bit of ramp in a sense based on life gain. Accomplished Alchemist is similar, it taps for any Keller, or I can add X mana, where X is the amount of life I gained. So again, just payoffs for gaining life. I don't have crazy amounts of life gain, but I have a lot of incremental life gain synergies, which we'll get to. Thragtusk is a perfect, in the middle card. Gains me 5 life when it enters, leaves me a 3/3 beast when it leaves. Some fun combos with that too, we'll get to those. Wingmate Rock enters the battlefield. If I attack with a creature, it gives me a 3/4 with flying, which I can populate, and then when it attacks, I gain a life for each attacking creature I control. So that's really useful. Again, splitting both synergies nicely. Feldon of the Third Path is here for the tokens. I can create a token that's a copy of a creature in my graveyard, and then I have to sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Once again though, I can populate it and keep the populated copy, and I'm able to make copies of stuff like Thragtusk, which will enter and leave, right, based on Feldon's ability. So it's really, really good card in this deck. Dragon Master Outcast creates me 5/5 dragons with flying if I have 6 or more lands, so that's again just another token generator. Prosperous Innkeeper enters and gives me a treasure, which is great, and then whenever a creature enters the battlefield, I gain a life. This is good with all my regular creatures, but as well with Populate. All these enter the battlefield. Gain lives will basically stack up nicely, give me benefits with my other life gain cards. Tristani's a really good card, again helping both strategies. She can tap 3 and tap to populate, but when another creature enters the battlefield under my control, I gain life equal to its toughness. Again, populating these large creatures is going to be great. It gains me a lot of life, but again, gains me life in general through all the creatures I play. Soul's Attendant, same thing. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, I gain a life. Great for both strategies. Crested Sunmare, we skip over Archangel Thune, we read that already. Crested Sunmare is excellent in this deck. Gives horses indestructible, but most importantly, at the beginning of each end step, if I gained life, it makes a 5/5 horse, which has indestructible, right? So this is great where it ties all my life gain now into big tokens, and really beneficial that way. If I have him and Tristani out, I'm almost guaranteed to be constantly making big creatures. Rock's Faithmender, lifelink, and if I would gain life, I gain twice as much, so this is an excellent card. Just doubles up on my life gain, especially for the small little bits like the 1 life here and there. But yeah, those are all my creatures. Again, kind of split between the 2 paths. Let's move on to sorceries. I have Cabaretti's Confluence, just a generally good Naya card, but it actually really sets up nicely and works with the strategy. So I can give a creature's target player controls +1 in first strike, so all my creatures. Or I can create a token that's a copy of target creature, and then again the clause of sacrifice it at the end. But if I make a populate version, then I don't have to sack it. And it also lets me exile an enchantment or artifact, and I can choose multiple modes. Really good card. Ghired's Belligerence is in here, deals X damage, divided as I choose among any number of target creatures, and whenever a creature dies this way, I populate. Phyrexian Rebirth is really good. It's a board wipe that then gives me a large token that I'm able to populate later. So pretty useful if like the board's getting out of hand. And it gives me an upside. Shamanic Revelation draws me a card for each creature I control, and then gains me 4 life for each creature power 4 or greater. Both synergies excellently in 1 card. Cultivate's here for ramp, Farseek's here for ramp, Nature's Lore, ramp. Titanic Ultimatum is, I guess, a finisher in the deck. Again, this was in my original Naya deck that I had made so long ago, which then turned into the Selesnya Life Gain deck that I knew. But yeah, just basically creatures I control get +5/+5, first strike, lifelink, and trample. just kind of a big overrun effect. You know, once it goes off, I get the lifelink still, which is nice, so it combos nicely with the life gain. Vandal Blast is in here just for artifact removal. Onto instants, we have Naya Charm, again, just 3 mana, I can deal 3 damage, return a creature from my graveyard, or I can tap down a player's board, which is really good if I want to get in for damage, especially with the big board. Sundering Growth destroys an artifact or enchantment and then populates. Druid's Deliverance is basically a fog, but then it populates. Rootborn Defenses gives all my creatures indestructible, and it populates. Rite of Harmony is in here. Whenever a creature enchantment enters the battlefield under my control this turn, I draw a card. I found that this deck ran a lot of enchantments. I got 14 enchantments in it just because they're all very beneficial to like the things. So I thought, you know what, I have a lot of creatures, I have a lot of enchantments. Populate makes a creature enter the battlefield, so I thought, you know, I'll put this in here for like a burst of card draw, and it's got a flashback, so it's not too terrible, and I think it works well in the long run. Second Harvest is in here, just copies all my tokens that I have, and Heroic Intervention, Grace card. Onto artifacts, we have a Mimic Vat. It basically makes a copy of whenever a creature dies. I can exile it under it, and then I can pay 3 to make a copy of it. Again, Thrag Tusks, enter, leave, yada yada yada. Tokens populate. Arcane Signet's here for ramp. Swiftfoot Boots here to get my commander to attack right away. Idol of Oblivion is going to just basically be an artifact that draws me a card if I'm populating all the time. And Asika's Chariot makes 2 cats, but on top of that, when it attacks, it basically populates. Onto enchantments. So yeah, so I have, you know, pretty big ones that I think there might be a couple that I might want to take out or change, but they're all pretty, you know, vital to the strategy. So Fertile Ground's just in here for ramp. Intangible Virtue, creature tokens have +1 in vigilance, great card in the deck. Killer Service enters and makes food tokens equal to the number of opponents I have. And then at the beginning of my end step, I can pay 2 and sack a token, any token, so it could be food or other smaller tokens I have that I'm not populating. And I create a 4/4 Rhino creature token. So I not only make food, which then gives me life, fitting the life gain strategy, but I also make 4/4 Rhinos out of them if I need it. Spotting Grounds is a bit expensive, but it basically gives my land the ability to make a 5/5 with Trample. Again, once I'm able to populate, that's 2 a turn. Sun Bond is in here, so when a creature whenever I gain life, I put that many +1 counters on a creature. Again, with the life gain strat, having this on my commander or something like that just keeps it alive longer. Druid's Class, when a land enters the battlefield under my control, I gain a life, allows me to play an additional land, gives with ramp, and then also makes one of my lands like a creature, which, you know, is semi-okay, but for 5 mana, I'm probably not getting to that level. Cathar's Crusade was one of the original additions in the deck, great card. When a creature enters the battlefield, puts +1 counters on all my creatures. Fervor gives all my creatures haste. Song of the World Song, when I cast a spell, I populate. Garruk's Uprising enters the battlefield. I draw if I have a creature power 4 or greater. Usually I'll have a Rhino out by then. And gives my creatures trample. And also, anytime I populate those Rhinos, I'm drawing cards. Celestial Mantle, whenever a creature deals combat damage, double my life total. Excellent in this deck. Not 100% sure if that's considered life gain. It could just be like my life total changes, but either way, what's not to like in a life gain deck than doubling your life? +3/+3. Growing Ranks just populates out my upkeep every time, and then Anointed Procession and Parallel Lives both just double the tokens I make, so now basically, you know, my populate's going off the charts, especially if I have both down. And yeah, that's the deck. So yeah, the enchantments were pretty big in this deck. Onto land base, I've been just kind of putting a bunch of lands. You could run through it here: Boros Garrison, Grasslands, Gruul Turf, that one, this one, this one, that one. A lot of the life gain ones I put in here because, again, they're useful to just drop and gain a little life. Seraph Sanctuary is also in here. I have a Jungle Shrine. I have Grove of the Guardian that makes an 8/8 green and white elemental with vigilance, so pretty solid. Big token. Witch's Clinic, which gives my commander lifelink, really good because I'm going to be attacking with him all the time. And Jetmir's Garden, just because it's a solid land. Finds it with Nature's Lore and Farseek. But yeah, that's the deck. Pretty pretty happy how this deck has been turning out, how it's been playing. It's very powerful. Ghired is a very powerful commander. Even just alone with the rhinos, it can get really stompy and overrunny. And then all the other cards just kind of benefit on top with the life gain strategies, and you know, with the other token benefits, making my rhinos 5/8 is really good and stuff like that. But yeah, that's basically the deck. Hope you guys enjoyed my Ghired deck. Check it out on the Mox field. I'm MC_Sebzy. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a like and a subscribe for more awesome content such as this. And thank you very much for watching. I've been MC Sebzy, and I'll see y'all later.